There is a symbol that has haunted humanity's collective imagination since the dawn of civilization. A creature both feared and revered, worshipped and condemned. The serpent. It slithers through the pages of every sacred text and mythic tale. In Eden, it tempts humanity toward forbidden knowledge. In Egypt, it coils around the sun god Ra, guarding the secrets of creation. In India, it becomes Kundalini, the serpent power sleeping at the base of the spine, waiting to awaken divine consciousness. And in Greece, it curls around the staff of Hermes, representing healing and transformation. How can one symbol, the serpent, represent both enlightenment and downfall, wisdom and deception, death and rebirth? The answer lies in understanding that ancient symbols were never meant to be taken at face value. The serpent, like consciousness itself, is dual in nature, a bridge between heaven and earth, between spirit and matter. It embodies both the potential to ascend and the temptation to descend. To the ancients, the serpent was not evil, it was power, raw, primordial, and transformative. Whether that power led to liberation or destruction depended on the one who wielded it. In this video, we will decode the hidden meaning of the serpent as it appears across ancient myths and esoteric traditions. We'll uncover why it was seen as the keeper of forbidden knowledge, how it came to symbolize both the divine and the fallen, and how this same archetype still operates within every human being today. You'll learn how the serpent relates to the energy of awakening, the same power mystics called the fire of the spine, or the dragon force. You'll also see why those unprepared to handle this energy often face chaos, confusion, and even madness. By the end of this journey, you will no longer see the serpent as merely a creature of temptation, but as a living key to inner transformation waiting to be understood. To understand the serpent's real meaning, we must travel back to a time when knowledge was not written in books, but encoded in symbols, when sages, priests, and initiates preserved cosmic truths through myth. The serpent was among their most sacred emblems. In ancient Egypt, the serpent took many forms. It was Uraeus, the coiled cobra worn on the forehead of pharaohs, symbolizing divine authority and the awakened third eye. The serpent also appeared as Apithys, the great serpent of chaos that battled Ra each night, threatening to swallow the sun. Yet, paradoxically, both the king's serpent and the serpent of darkness were essential parts of the same cosmic order, one representing the disciplined energy of divine will, the other the chaotic potential from which all creation arises. In India, this same duality lived on through Naga and Kundalini. The Nagas were semi-divine serpents dwelling in the underworld, guardians of treasures. But these treasures were not gold, they were spiritual powers, hidden knowledge. The concept of Kundalini, the serpent power coiled at the base of the spine, mirrors this perfectly. When dormant, it lies hidden in the dark, the underworld of the body. But when awakened, through discipline and devotion, it rises through the spinal centers, transforming the human into a divine being. The Greeks, inheritors of Egyptian and Babylonian wisdom, gave us the serpent-entwined staff of Hermes, the caduceus. Hermes, known to the Egyptians as Thoth, was the messenger of the gods, the guide between realms, just as the serpent bridges the seen and unseen worlds. The two serpents on his staff spiral upward in harmony, representing the balance of opposing forces, masculine and feminine, sun and moon, conscious and subconscious. Together they form a channel through which divine wisdom flows. In Hebrew mysticism, the serpent also plays a pivotal role. In the Garden of Eden, it awakens humanity to the knowledge of good and evil. But here lies one of the greatest misunderstandings of all time. The serpent did not bring evil into the world, it brought awareness. The fall was not a punishment, but a descent into matter, the necessary step for spirit to know itself through form. Humanity's exile from paradise mirrors the soul's descent into the physical world, and the serpent was the guide that led the way. Across all these traditions, one truth becomes clear. The serpent represents energy, primal, intelligent, creative energy that can either raise consciousness to the divine or drag it down into illusion. Those who feared this symbol misunderstood its power. Those who revered it knew that it concealed the secret of life itself, the eternal dance between light and shadow, ascent and descent, spirit and matter. The serpent, then, is not a villain nor a savior. It is a mirror of the human condition.
To truly decode the serpent, we must move beyond symbols and stories into what it represents within human consciousness. The serpent is not merely a mythological creature. It is a metaphor for the life force itself, the divine current that animates all beings. In esoteric teachings, this current is often depicted as a serpent because it moves in spirals, the universal pattern of creation. From the double helix of DNA to the coiling galaxies of the cosmos, this serpentine motion is life's signature. It represents the cyclical nature of existence, birth, death, and rebirth, the endless shedding of skins as consciousness evolves through form. When mystics speak of awakening the serpent, they are not referring to an external power. They are speaking of Kundalini, the latent spiritual energy that sleeps coiled at the base of the human spine. In its dormant state, this energy is unconscious, instinctive, earthy, and bound to desire. But when stirred through meditation, breath, or devotion, it begins its ascent, rising through the inner centers known as chakras. Each chakra it passes through is both a threshold and a trial, a test of the seeker's purity, intention, and alignment. When it finally reaches the crown, the serpent unites with its divine counterpart, bringing illumination, bliss, and the realization that spirit and matter are one. This is the serpent as redeemer, the divine wisdom that liberates. But the serpent also carries another face, that of the tempter. In this form, it symbolizes the same energy when misused, when consciousness turns outward instead of inward, seeking power, pleasure, and control. The fall of man in the Garden of Eden is not just a biblical event. It is an inner allegory of how the same divine force, when directed by ego, leads to separation from the source. Think of it this way. The serpent's motion can ascend or descend. When it ascends, it enlightens. When it falls, it entangles. Both directions are part of the same current, but the intention determines the outcome. The ancients understood this, which is why they depicted the serpent as both healer and destroyer. In the staff of Hermes, the caduceus, we see two serpents spiraling upward around a central rod, representing the balanced ascent of energy. But in the rod of Asclepius, where a single serpent climbs alone, we see the healing process, the singular journey of spirit mastering matter. Both symbols speak of transformation, but they remind us that balance is essential. Unbalanced energy, like a serpent uncoiled too soon, can become chaos. This duality is also reflected in our own biology. The brainstem, often called the reptilian brain, governs survival instincts, the most primal aspect of human nature. Yet coiled above it, the neocortex allows abstract thought, morality, and spiritual awareness. The same serpent force that drives survival at the base of the spine can, when refined, give rise to enlightenment at the crown. Thus, the serpent represents potential, the raw life force that can either bind or free us. The ancients encoded this truth in myth to remind us that divinity is not somewhere outside, but hidden within the very energies that make us human. When understood and guided, the serpent becomes the ladder of ascent, the Jacob's ladder, the spinal path connecting earth to heaven. But when left unconscious, it becomes the dragon of chaos, devouring its own tail in endless repetition. The task of the seeker, then, is not to fear the serpent, nor to worship it blindly, but to know it, to master its movement, and to ride its power toward illumination. To understand the serpent more deeply, we must explore its hidden paradox, that it embodies both divine wisdom and the fall of man. How can one symbol represent such opposites? The answer lies in the universal law of polarity, one of the Hermetic principles, which teaches that every quality contains its opposite, and that opposites are merely two extremes of the same essence. The serpent is the perfect emblem of this truth. It is both the lowest and the highest, the beginning and the end, the creature of the earth and the messenger of the gods. In the myth of Eden, the serpent tempts humanity with the fruit of knowledge, and for this act it is cursed. But esoterically, this curse is a descent, the spirit entering matter, the divine consciousness entering the human form. The fall is the birth of awareness within limitation. Through this descent, humanity gains the power to experience duality, good and evil, light and dark, and thus to evolve towards self-knowledge. This is the hidden teaching behind the forbidden fruit. It was never about disobedience. It was about choice, the awakening of free will. The serpent's role was that of the initiator, the one who leads humanity from innocence to awareness, from unconscious unity to conscious divinity. Every spiritual path mirrors this same story: a fall, a descent into confusion and separation, and finally a return, wiser, transformed, and awake. In alchemy, the serpent often appears as the dragon, representing the prima materia, the raw, unrefined energy of the soul. To slay the dragon does not mean to destroy it, but to transmute it. The alchemist must face the dragon within, the instincts, fears, and desires, and through inner fire transform them into gold. The dragon's venom and its blood are both poison and medicine, depending on how they are used. So too with consciousness. The same energies that enslave us in ignorance can, when purified, liberate us. This is why the serpent is often depicted biting its own tail, the Ouroboros, the eternal circle of creation and destruction. It symbolizes the cyclical process of transformation, death feeding life, ignorance feeding wisdom. The serpent eats itself and is reborn from itself, just as the human soul, through countless incarnations and experiences, refines itself back into pure awareness. In Eastern mysticism, the serpent's awakening within the body is not a metaphor, but a direct energetic experience. When Kundalini rises through the spinal column, it burns through impurities, old patterns, attachments, and fears. This process can feel like death itself, for the ego resists surrender. Many traditions warn of awakening the serpent prematurely, because if the mind and heart are unprepared, this energy can overwhelm, leading to instability or imbalance. Therefore, the serpent must be awakened through wisdom, not ambition. The one who seeks power for its own sake will fall into the serpent's lower aspect, illusion, pride, and separation. But the one who seeks truth will rise with it, transformed by its light. The ancient teachers encoded this lesson again and again. In Egypt, Isis holds the serpent as a symbol of mastery over the life force. In Greece, Apollo, the god of light, slays the serpent Python to claim the oracle of Delphi,
a metaphor for the purification of the inner voice. In every myth, the serpent is both the obstacle and the key, the very challenge that leads to awakening. So, the serpent's fall and its wisdom are not contradictions, but two stages of the same journey: descent into matter and ascent into spirit. Humanity's story, like the serpent's, is one of eternal transformation, falling into forgetfulness, rising into remembrance, and finally realizing that both are part of one divine process. To know the serpent, then, is to know oneself, the eternal being coiled between heaven and earth, destined to rise again. The serpent's wisdom is not meant to remain as myth. It is a living force within each of us, waiting to be recognized and guided. Understanding its symbolism is only the first step. The real transformation happens when we work consciously with the serpent energy. This energy, known in many traditions as Kundalini, Chi, or the dragon force, lies dormant at the base of the spine. In its resting state, it sustains physical life, governing instinct, vitality, and survival. But through inner discipline and self-awareness, this same energy can be awakened and directed upward, transforming not only the body, but the mind and spirit. However, as all the ancient masters warned, the serpent must rise through purity, not through desire. Attempting to awaken this power through ego, impatience, or curiosity can lead to imbalance, emotional turbulence, confusion, or spiritual delusion. Therefore, the first and most essential step is preparation. Begin by cultivating stillness. The serpent awakens in silence, not in noise. Daily meditation, even 10 minutes of conscious breathing, begins to calm the waters of the mind. As the inner currents settle, you start to feel subtle sensations, gentle warmth, tingling, or pulsing, signs that the life force is stirring. Do not chase these sensations, observe them. Awareness itself is the first act of mastery. Next, purify the vessel. The serpent cannot rise through a polluted channel. This means cleansing both body and thought. Avoid foods, habits, and emotions that drain energy. Anger, resentment, and fear constrict the flow of life force, while gratitude, compassion, and truth expand it. Think of your spine as a sacred river. Every act of kindness, every breath of mindfulness clears its course. A powerful yet simple exercise is the breath of ascent. Sit upright, close your eyes, and imagine a luminous serpent coiled at the base of your spine. With each slow inhale, visualize it uncoiling and moving upward through your spinal column, through your heart, your throat, your brow, until it reaches the crown of your head. As you exhale, feel light descending back down the same path, harmonizing the entire system. Practice without force. The aim is not to make energy rise, but to invite it through balance and reverence. Over time, this practice begins to reveal its deeper effect. You may notice heightened intuition, vivid dreams, or moments of profound stillness. The serpent teaches through experience, not words. It shows you the hidden mechanics of your own consciousness. Most importantly, remember the law of balance. The serpent's power is neutral. It magnifies what you are. If you are in harmony, it amplifies clarity and love. If you are in chaos, it magnifies confusion. This is why self-knowledge is the true initiation. Before one commands energy, one must command thought. In the end, the serpent does not ask to be worshipped, but understood. It is the bridge between instinct and divinity, body and spirit, matter and light. When guided by wisdom, it becomes the very force that awakens the sleeping God within.
The serpent has always been a mirror,
reflecting humanity's own inner paradox. It embodies the divine potential sleeping within each person, but also the danger of misusing that power. Across time and culture, sages have hidden its true meaning in myths, so that only the sincere seeker would uncover it, not through belief, but through experience. We have seen how the serpent weaves through all the great traditions, the coiled cobra of Egypt symbolizing awakened sight, the Kundalini of India spiraling through the spine, the Ouroboros devouring its tail as the eternal cycle of renewal. In each form, it whispers the same truth, that creation and destruction, light and darkness are not enemies, but partners in the dance of awakening. The serpent is the living current of consciousness, the pulse of life that animates the cosmos and your very being. When you fear it, it remains asleep. When you chase it recklessly, it burns. But when you honor it with awareness and humility, it becomes the golden path leading from matter to spirit. This is why the serpent is both the symbol of wisdom and the emblem of the fall. It represents the energy that brought spirit into flesh, and the energy that can lift flesh back into spirit. Its story is the story of humanity itself, descent into limitation, discovery through struggle, and the eventual return to divine remembrance. So the next time you see the image of a serpent on an ancient temple wall, in a dream, or in the staff of a healer, remember, you are looking at a reflection of your own potential. Within you lies that same sacred fire, waiting to rise, to transform, to awaken. Do not fear it. Learn from it. Let it teach you balance, discipline, and surrender. For when the serpent finally rises in harmony, the human being ceases to be merely human and becomes what the ancients called a living god.